welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the refreshments and you're prepared to hear a few more very interesting talks. First up, we have a man who I've been told needs no introduction, but I'll do it anyway. His name is James Martin. He's an MA candidate in Ancient Greek and Roman Studies at Brandeis University and is about 35 seconds away from graduating. He's giving a talk today titled, I'm a pirate, you're a pirate, everybody's a pirate. Sorry, my notes are wrong. It's Piracy as a Means of Understanding Homeric Identity and Relationship. Please welcome James Martin.
All right, hopefully I do service that introduction. So as Zach said the second time, I'm talking about piracy as a means of understanding Homeric identity and relationships. But before I get started, I want to talk a little bit about pirate terms in general, how I'm going to be using the term pirate, and how I'm also going to be understanding that everybody in the Homeric epics are pirates. Not everybody, but most of them. So a handout should be making its way around, or you don't have it. I want to draw attention to first section 1 there, pirate terms. We have laus, which is spoils or booty. We have laisdomai, which is the verb to raid or to obtain something as booty. And finally, we have laister, which is one who obtains booty, as in pirate. Now, when I'm using these terms, I'm also going to be referring to actions of heroes to be in terms of piracy. Heroes mean like Odysseus and Achilles. The term, to be fair, laister is not used with them, but their actions, the verb and the noun, as far as what they do, is the exact same. If you want to talk more about that afterwards, we can, but that's where we're starting from now. So through piracy, I've been able to create a hierarchy of relationships with which we can understand Homer all the better. So first, I'll just go through these relationships, talk about them a little bit. They're also in the third page of the handout if you want to see them a little bit more closely. We have the hero in the middle. Again, this is maybe who the epic's about, or just somebody who is at a high level of prestige. We have next closest to them is the pheloi. These are close friends, people of the household in close relationships. A degree slightly away from that, I should also point out now that these are, when I use the term closeness, this is in a relationship with them, not necessarily proximity. And xenoi, for example, can be from anywhere, but it's someone who's emotionally close with the hero. On the outside, we have the demos and the sumakoi. They're in the middle. These are the people that you interact with on a daily basis, and I'll talk about who these people are when I actually get to specific heroes. On the outside, we have the aloi and the ecthroi, and this is actually where I'm going to start because this is most important to understand pirates, and then the actions of the heroes. So we, when pirates fall upon somebody, these are not necessarily ecthroi. These are not enemies. Yeah, just briefly, I forget that not everybody spends years studying Greek. Pheloi means friends or dear ones. Xenoi is a guest friend. The demos means the people, like democracy, sumakoi are their allies. The aloi just means others, and again, I'll talk about that. And then ecthroi, these are enemies. So again, when pirates fall upon people, they are not necessarily enemies. They are just people that they're using as a means of getting wealth and reputation increases, that type of thing. So to experience this first, we can look at part 2 of the handout here. This is a common greeting that we see both from Nestor and Polyphemus, where they say, "O strangers, who are you? From where do you sail the watery paths? Do you come for trade, or do you wander aimlessly like pirates on the sea, who risk their lives for good deeds to others or evil to others?" Now, the key here is that these pirates are wandering aimlessly. They're not targeting specifically people who have wronged them in the past. These are people who, the pirates, they are falling upon enemies for the sake, people for the sake of getting stuff. Now, this is what I call the aloi, people you just fall upon to get stuff and increase your reputation. We see this also in the third handout there with Odysseus when he raids Ismarus, where he says, "Carrying me from Ilium, the wind brought me to the Kikones, to Ismarus. There I sacked the city and killed the men. After we seized the wives and many goods from the city, we divided them up in order that no one went deprived of his share." Now this is classic behavior of pirates, dividing up the stuff that the booty that you get, essentially. So again, when Odysseus is leading his men onto this, the Kikones are not his ecthroi. He's not doing this to hurt the Kikones, he's doing this just to make his life better, to get more stuff for himself. The Kikones to Odysseus are aloi. They are not ecthroi. This attitude is carried on throughout the epics, and this is also going to be able to be seen through Achilles in particular. When we have this fight between Achilles and Agamemnon, there's a mention about Achilles says, "The Trojans never did anything to me, so for 9 years Achilles is fighting this war. Not because he hates the Trojans, but we know that Achilles is fighting this because he wants to improve, again, his own reputation, and he wants to improve his own wealth. Now, it's not until Achilles, obviously he does consider the Trojans ultimately enemies, but it's only the death of his Philos, Patroclus. Somebody who's close to him, it's a personal attack on him. These Trojans are transferred from others, people that he can just raid for his own benefit, to actually enemies. This seems probably most accurately shown through the Lycaon beseeching. So this is part 4 in the handout. We have before Patroclus met his fate up that very day, this is Achilles speaking, it was more pleasing in my heart to spare the Trojans. And I took many of them still alive and sold them overseas. But now there is not one whom the walls of Troy God might put into my hands would escape death. No one of all the Trojans, nor the sons of Priam. No friend, even you die. So he's talking to Lycaon here. It was somebody that he already had captured in the past. He captured him, he ransomed him, he got huge amounts of money for him. Lycaon had just said, please, let's just do this again. I didn't harm Patroclus. Ransom me again. This is all the great stuff you're going to get. But no, Achilles now sees all of the Trojans not as alloy, not as an opportunity to get stuff, but as an actual enemy, people that he wants to kill for the sake of killing. So clarifying these up now, I'm going to move to the middle category, the Deimos and the Sumakoi. This category actually fills pretty big roles in the narrative of both epics. The Deimos in the Iliad I consider to be the Achaean coalition for Achilles. These are people that Achilles has to interact with regularly. And then in the Odyssey, this is the Ithacans, of the people that Odysseus, when he's home, would have to interact with regularly as well. Now, the attitude that these heroes seem to have with the Deimos is you don't wrong them until they wrong you. Right? So Achilles eventually feels wronged by Agamemnon and all of the people and the Achaeans with their ascent. So he goes and he wishes for their deaths and bad things to happen to them until he's returned. Odysseus is a little bit more heavy-handed, but when he comes home, finds out that the Ithacans have wronged him so previously, he just kills them. But the attitude towards this is not necessarily that of judgment, especially by the gods. That the gods help them in both of these situations because the Deimos violated this pact first. They are the ones that broke the social contract and harmed the hero initially. Moving on from the overall stories to specific ones, again concerning piracy, we have the story of Eupeithes. Now, Eupeithes is the father of Antinous, who Antinous, again, is that lead suitor. And Penelope is talking to him, reminding him about how his family kind of owes Odysseus. And she says, again, this is 5 in the handout, do you not know that your father came here as a fugitive, shrinking away from the people? For indeed he was excessively hated because he followed the Taphian pirates and grieved the Thesprotians. They were in league with us. They wanted to destroy him and bereave him, this is very literal, so bear with the end here, of his dear heart and eat up his great satisfying livelihood. They wanted to kill him and take all of his stuff. Now, what's problematic here is this scene is often interpreted as a condemnation of piracy in and of itself. But that's not what's happening here. It's not that Eupeithes went out and was acting like a pirate. The problem here is that Eupeithes is raiding the wrong people. Now, as during Ms. Eichengreen's presentation, she said that piracy, until a rise of a more advanced polis, didn't really condemn piracy. Completely agree. And this is perhaps the attitude that's fulfilling the end of this. So again, Eupeithes, he raids somebody who's a Deimos or the Sumakoi. He raids people who are too close to him, and as a result, he messed up and So moving on from the Deimos and the Sumakoi, I know I'm going quickly here, but we have a variety of relationships. We talked briefly already about who would be a Philos with Patroclus and Achilles. I want to now finish up with the Xenos. Now, for a hero, a Xenos can be just as important as somebody who is doing raiding. Now, specifically, the scene where Odysseus goes into Polyphemus' cave, the Cyclops cave, is probably what highlights this one the most. This is part 6. There my companions first begged me with words that we take the cheeses and come back, then to sail on the salty sea after we had quickly driven the kids, these are kids as in baby goats, and sheep from the pen, our swift ship. But I did not obey. How much better would had I done that until I should see him if he would give me gifts. So what's going on here is Odysseus does not want to just raid the cave and leave like his men do. Odysseus wants to actually become a guest friend with Polyphemus. He wants to get somebody who's closer on his circle, this Xenos. Partially because what's a big element of Xenos is gift giving. So he, again, this is what Odysseus does. He's the man of many paths, many woes, that he wants to meet as many people as possible, and then he gets a guest gift. This isn't the only time where Odysseus and his men differ about how they're supposed to interact with guest gifts. The whole issue with Aeolus giving the bag of winds to Odysseus also highlights this, where his men say, why does he get even more gold and silver? Of course, they don't know what's in the bag, and this was a gift from Aeolus, a guest gift. And he says, that the men say, or Odysseus thinks the men are saying, of course he's taking a nap this time, that they're jealous of his guest gift and they want what's in it. So there seems to be a disconnect basically between a hero and the expectations of his men on they aren't going to get a portion of a guest gift. That's why they're going to want to be raiders, and it comes through this. So through examining the scenes of piracy, specifically spoil acquisition and violence, which again are both pretty common themes throughout both the Iliad and the Odyssey, we're able to create and understand a hierarchy of relationships and how warriors are supposed to behave and interact with them. By applying this hierarchy to interactions beyond just piracy, we can understand the expectations of Homeric characters, and we can maybe more clearly understand the motivations in the epic at large. Thank you. What's that?
We're all pirates.
We are all pirates. So the way pirates get stuff is the way heroes get stuff, and I think especially something like the Xenos relationship is also key for pirates too, because you're spending all your time. I just have this image of them, hanging out with the boys all the time, going out, just having fun raiding people, and they come back and maybe they all go to different places and they keep in touch, and that might be more important to them, that relationship, than maybe even the local relationships they have with Helen?
So I was thinking, so are these men also, are they actually entitled to share the guest gift that they get, or is the guest gift just with
The guest gift is never shared with the people, not in any of the passages on the perhaps Professor Christensen, Mr. Christensen, Dr. Christensen. We're going to fold and go as formalists.
Yeah, you just went to the Ekthros.
Grandmaster. Can correct me, but no, the guest gifts are never shared with the men, unless there's somebody of note who is with them as somebody who came from a different area, that the relationship is closer than just you fight for. Was that okay?
It should be making me realize that one of Odysseus's classic aspects of his intelligence is that he maybe he's the hero because he sees that there is another way to get stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you can make yourself, even with a monster like Polyphemus, of course doesn't work out, but he thought it might, move from the category of the pirate, which is an acceptable way to get stuff, to the guest host relationship, except when you run into somebody who eats his guests,
Right.
then you're not going to get very far.
Right. So I mean, this is I think this is exactly right, and I think even with Odysseus's successes and failures as a pirate, there is maybe an attitude shifted towards, again, not a condemnation of piracy, but an attitude of you're going to run out. You're either going to make a friend of people you don't know, like the Alway is eventually going to shrink. And you can't raid everybody or be friends with everybody. Sometimes you have to pick. And so this might be something that the epics are aware in their development of, and I think as a result, there is this line, and at the end, Odysseus does have to go home. He does have to stop being a pirate, but he goes home, kills everyone, he's to be a pirate king, so that's pretty awesome. But he does have to settle again and clear things up and take charge of this place that he where he ever ends up. Is that good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Grandmaster Christian.
Would you be willing to just make some stuff up on the spot? I'm thinking the two sides of the vase that we saw earlier. One has a scene of pirates, right, with some sort of naval battle. The other has the Odyssey on it. Do you want to riff on that in light of your hierarchy of relationships?
Yeah, why not? So some things that, and I was potentially going to ask this question, and I still would like maybe your response to this, is when I see these, it was striking me that there's like a cutaway scene of these rowers, right, on this as you said, not necessarily Greek, but Hellenized. Is that an appropriate word for the Etruscans? A Hellenized Etruscan? Magna Graecaized? I don't know. But anyway, a Greekish influence.
Greekish influence is good.
Cool. And then the other one is it seems more clearly to be classic Etruscan style, and there's no cutaway with people underneath it, which in the epics, there's no scene where one ship is falling onto another ship as far as piratically, and when they do go somewhere, everyone's hopping out of their ship and going raiding people. So it was interesting to me that they don't show rowers, which might actually show a certain level of sophistication in the one ship, as far as naval awareness and being able to fight a naval battle, whereas the other one might have been a little bit more people just falling on different peoples in that route. But there does seem to be a conflict often between this attitude of what the world of the Odyssey encapsulates, which is this piracy, and then eventually how it, and then how it eventually grows, because the people reading this are ultimately going to be people living in a horse. So there does need to be some sort of development into that. So, all right, Zach's giving me the warning that I'm done, so any other questions can be answered. Thank you.